Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about Baby Driver. Baby Driver is very self-aware of the kind of movie it is, and that's kind of par for the course for Edgar Wright, who normally most of his movies are self-aware and what they're doing with its genre and what he's saying with that genre and kind of mixing things up with the genre, particularly movies you've seen done to death and kinds of movies you've seen done to death, and find new ways to make a point with them, try to say something about the characters through that genre and so forth. Baby Driver feels very much like any other Edgar Wright film. You can tell the kind of film he's trying to make, the kind of older films that it's influenced by, and the kind of stylistic kind of statement he's trying to make with it. And Baby Driver is actually amazingly fantastic and entertaining at doing that. In fact, when this film sings and works, it was absolutely fucking amazing to watch. I was just singing in my head. My heart was palpitating with all the energy that I was seeing through the cuts and the self-awareness and how he was using these genre cliches to have fun with in ways that most directors don't, because they will never love cinema as much as Edgar Wright loves it, and very few directors even love it more. Truly, the great movie makers want to use that medium and play within it, and Edgar Wright definitely is one of those. I didn't really need this movie to tell me that, but this movie kind of reaffirmed what I already knew about him, showing kind of the amazing auteur that Edgar Wright really is. This is almost like his Tarantino genre statement that we've all been waiting for, but not really, but we kind of assumed he probably had in him and delivered anyway. This is more of a reaffirmment for me, because I've always had a lot of faith in Edgar Wright, knowing he's probably our greatest comedy director of our time, now showing that he can actually do an action movie and proving that he made probably one of the best directed action movies of at least this year, especially one that's as stylized as this one. Most stylized action movies kind of fall apart basically more theoretically than anything, and I think the theory in Baby Driver is so strong that I almost want to just like praise the shit out of this movie because I had such an amazing time. I actually did bring my daughter. She had a good time, and I got to have her dance in my lap during a lot of the music, which was like a lot of fun, and she had a lot of fun. She really liked Baby Driver, believe it or not, more than Boss Baby, so Baby's like Baby Driver more, I guess. So sorry, no Baby Sophie and Baby Driver. This film works in a very postmodern way, and it works almost influenced by what Blockbuster and what the late 70s movie brat generation was really trying to do, which was take these B movies and kind of make them in different ways and do the things that they loved and mix them up in a very postmodern combining ideas. Star Wars is of course the best example of that, which is no real influence on Baby Driver, but that's kind of the idea of it. Spielberg and Lucas and Carpenter and those guys are really kind of the people who pushed it forward, and now we're in what we're in now, and people don't even notice when you're combining two things. They just accept them, and that's just life now. But Baby Driver is very influenced by Walter Hill's film The Driver, which is interesting because The Driver, which has influenced even Nicholas Winding Refn's film Drive, which this film shares kind of similarities to in certain regards, and even The Terminator and tons of others, is that The Driver by Walter Hill is very much a genre deconstruction. It doesn't even have character names. It's the driver, the cop, the player, the girl, things of that nature. And so it is a deconstruction to a degree that it's almost like a stylistic exercise. And the fact that so many films have been influenced by this is interesting because it breaks down a B movie and deconstructs it, and ended up in itself becoming a blueprint for all these other movies like Drive, Baby Driver, even people say The Terminator, and tons of other films that I probably can't even think of now, but the kind of silent, quiet driver that Ryan O'Neal played in The Driver is now kind of influenced things from Drive to Baby Driver. What I think is particularly interesting about Baby Driver, and almost in a way that it shows a difference from what I think Edgar Wright did so well in the Cornetto trilogy, which is he used zombie movies, buddy action films, and then sci-fi films in each of those films to say something about the friendship and relationships of those characters through that genre, and very much found ways to say something about those characters in a very personal thing. You know, he'd say they were very much like, you know, a Mike Leigh movie, a small English kind of kitchen sink kind of a film within that genre, and it was actually very interesting. Baby Driver might be where the stylization and the style exercise kind of take over rather than trying to say something about character. He still tries to do that in the end and everything, but I don't necessarily think it works, and I think it almost goes against the theory of what he's trying to make this film as, which is that the character that Ansel Elgort is playing is almost just a archetype in a way. He's not supposed to really be saying something with it, and he's supposed to be this silent, kind of quiet guy in ways that like Ryan Gosling used his character in Drive to do it more successfully. I don't think Baby Driver, trying to find greater meaning within that character, is somehow theoretically sort of missing the point and doesn't entirely work as well. Now that's kind of like a minor point, I guess, but I found the film kind of falling apart towards the end of it. Honestly, if it had ended 20, maybe 5 or 10 minutes earlier, without trying to give this film heart, which is a little weird to take a film that is severely influenced by a deconstructionist cold interpretation of genre and things and trying to build it off of that blueprint and giving it heart. It doesn't entirely necessarily work. It almost feels like someone trying to soften the blow. Now I've seen people say this is like a soft drink sugary perfection of a movie, and that's exactly the point. That's what stylization, I guess, basically is in this blockbuster way, and it's not necessarily trying to say something about our modern times and political agenda and things like that, but it's not even trying to either. It is a fun, stylized musical, almost a musical action movie, almost so much of a musical I think it's probably a better musical than La La Land, and therefore I'm a good critic because I trashed on La La Land or something. But it shows someone who really loves music and loves, playing around with music and loves picking interesting choices. I've heard people complain that this just uses a bunch of older songs and how come this kid doesn't know anything that came out in the last 5 to 10 years. I agree with that, and I definitely do, but I also think it's awesome that a movie in 2017 can open with an awesome action sequence scored by the John Spencer Blues Explosion, which I'm pretty sure is the least commercial band I can think of for any movie starting in 2017. It definitely shows Edgar Wright's cinematic powers, that he can kind of transcend these music choices and make these sequences sing as well as he does. And I think that stylized amazing perfection kind of makes me go past kind of the film's faults in a way. Certainly, I think the problem with Edgar Wright's films, and I almost find it a problem with Quentin Tarantino films, is that when you review a new movie, you're only sort of supposed to have seen it once, ethically, morally, I guess. And if it's an older film, you can really dive deeper into it, partly because you've had years of watching it and years of experiencing it and talking about it with friends and such. When you're doing a newer review, even though this review is late and shit, I'm not going to be able to have watched it 20 times. Now, if you ask me in 2 years when I bought the Blu-ray of this, which I probably still will, I think I do own all those movies. Oh shit, and even Space. I do end up poring over the cuts and poring over the ideas and poring over what he's doing in every shot. And Tarantino's almost the same way, I think, with a lot of people. And then feeling the way you feel about a Tarantino movie when it comes out is not the same way people feel about it in 10 years because you've watched it a million times and you can tell exactly what he's trying to say. And I think that's kind of the problem with this kind of stylized thing. I think this is as close as Edgar Wright's gotten to Quentin Tarantino and showing his auteur vision in a Hollywood way and being able to kind of handpick interesting character actors and everything like that. It looks like he has an amazing cast. The only person he didn't really get that it seems like he wanted was Emma Stone, who went and did La La Land. So that's oh wow, that's interesting. And Michael Douglas, who really likes Edgar Wright and is why he signed on for Ant-Man and was supposed to play the Kevin Spacey part, but look at this fucking cast. Kevin Spacey, John Hamm, Jamie Foxx. Who gets these guys in one movie together? It's frankly awe-inspiring the kind of cast he has in this. This is the kind of like award show kind of a cast doing an awesome stylized movie, and only someone like Edgar Wright or Tarantino or an indie film director with their own spirit could get this kind of thing. Not only to get this kind of a cast, which is one thing, but also get it to work as well. Each of them almost understands they're playing these archetypes so well, they're almost having fun with it. I think there's not enough said about how talented of an actor Jamie Foxx is. Even in Django, I think people just misunderstood exactly what he's doing. Let's say not misunderstood, but undermined how talented of an actor he is. He's almost playing that part so well, it's almost like awe-inspiring. Certainly, they could have gotten someone like Tyrese from the Fast and Furious films, and that's kind of more of the typical person you would get for this, but wouldn't it be better to have an actor as talented as Jamie Foxx do it? He almost like plays with it like he understands completely the kind of character that he is playing. And definitely getting someone from a Tarantino film, especially like Django, he totally understood all of the references and ideas for everything he's playing. If you've seen him talk about Quentin Tarantino directing him and the intensity of each scene and what each scene means and things like that, Jamie Foxx is someone who can intellectualize that and act it out. And I think most people will ignore his performance in this. I've seen a lot more written about John Hamm, who's also really good playing against type in certain ways that I've never seen him do before. It's quite amazing. Even Eliza Gonzalez, who I'm not really aware of because unfortunately I don't get El Rage. She's from the From Dusk Till Dawn series, and she was really great. Like, he's perfectly picked the actors for this and they're perfectly playing their parts. Like, they are aware of what they're doing just as well as Edgar Wright is. And that's something I think he works well with the Cornetto trilogy and even Scott Pilgrim and such. Is it's almost like the actors are in on it as much as he is. Certain times I feel like when you have these self-aware B movies and things, the younger actors almost feel like they're playing the young role, like they were in a 1980s movie, but not in the self-aware way, just in the like, I'm a young actor and this is the role I'm supposed to play kind of way, which feels a little boring. Even Ansel Elgort and Lily James are fully aware of what they're doing, but it's such a genre deconstruction, like having her name be Deborah and his name be Baby is almost superfluous, which is kind of part of the problem I was talking about with this movie, is that if it has stayed true to its influence, which is the driver, this film could have been amazingly fantastic. But as it got into like how Baby has a soul and all this shit, I think that's for people who need to think that all their celebrities are good like them. And theoretically, I think this movie sings and soars in certain ways. This will probably almost make my best of the year. It was so good in certain parts. And I'm not saying like just because you're on a best of list doesn't mean you're flawless. I think this film certainly has flaws, but I think overall it works and almost tries to get that point work within its stylization. This might end up being one of Edgar Wright's weaker films, and maybe not having a co-writer actually hurt him in certain ways. I think like Simon Pegg or Joe Wright or somebody could have maybe tightened those up and actually said to him like, maybe you shouldn't be looking for a soul for Ansel Elgort. Although Ansel Elgort, I will say, understood exactly what he was playing. He plays it so well. I've seen people play this character archetype so many different times. I could tell you he really finds his own soul within it. I like the style of him. He feels like he could be Tom Cruise, like risky business Tom Cruise. Everyone forgets about that Tom Cruise, but like early 80s Tom Cruise, that cool guy, 80s, you know, young Republican kind of a thing. But he has that kind of 80s white dude kind of mystique about him, but in a 2017 millennial way. Lily James is also really good. I can almost understand why he falls in love with her, even though she's an archetype. But as I saw this with my wife and my father-in-law, I could tell they kind of like were watching it very knowing how self-aware it was, and almost I think most people, their criticism of film like The Driver was that, isn't this just a B movie? And I'd be like, well, you're not wrong. But I think what this is doing is almost like for people who watch too many movies, and seeing a director kind of sing and use that genre and those conventions to do something interesting with it. But this is almost more of a style exercise than anything else, but he does so well with it. That's what I loved about it. I love the experience of watching this movie. Maybe that's the right way to watch it. It seems like everyone universally loves it, and I would honestly really agree with a lot of what it's doing. I might disagree with what I'm saying about trying to find the soul of this character who's supposed to be this experience kind of cold kind of archetype, which that character is. I love how Edgar Wright cuts around with this, how he uses the camera and everything. Bill Pope is still Edgar Wright's big secret weapon, and the way Bill Pope uses some zooms and uses his camera to shoot a lot of these car sequences is really inspired. Bill Pope and Edgar Wright should be making a fucking Fast and Furious film, and they direct it better than anyone they could offer it to. And I'm honestly, I think they should, even though I know Edgar Wright franchise filmmaking isn't going to happen anymore probably. It almost feels like too perfect not to happen at this point, especially after watching Baby Driver. And all of this was like practical car scenes. They used a lot of the same stunt drivers actually as Drive. There's a lot of connections between this and Drive. This is almost like the soda pop version of a fine wine that Drive was. This is the kind of fun, well-made summer movie version of that, but it's almost like Edgar Wright gets it and is having so much fun with it. He doesn't really like give a shit what kind of a movie this is, and maybe this doesn't fit into your weird preconceived notions of what a movie should be. He wants to make Baby Driver the movie he wants it to be. That fun, very almost 80s feel. This feels, even though it's very influenced by a 70s film, it actually feels very influenced by a lot of Walter Hill stuff. If you don't know Walter Hill other than The Warriors, get on it, because Walter Hill is probably one of the more influential directors who you don't hear his name mentioned as much, aside from like The Warriors and 48 Hours and things. A lot of what he did was deconstructing things. The simplicity and the minimalism of what he's doing influenced a lot of directors today, and particularly Edgar Wright, who's spoken about it quite a lot, and even did the podcast The Canon just talking about The Driver. And honestly, I could have told you that if he hadn't done it. It's like so obvious. In fact, seeing The Driver, I think there's two ways you can watch this movie, and once you've seen The Driver, it's probably changes it for you. Maybe that's why I like it more. Maybe that's why a lot of critics like it more, because we're all familiar with The Driver, and we've been familiar with it for a long time, and it's been an established classic for 5 or so, ever since Drive came out. I think it had just been rediscovered before that by most people and reassessed, and most people really like The Driver, and I think Baby Driver kind of is able to take off from that. This is a film that really uses a film community that loves genre and plays within it, and Edgar Wright's a good enough of a filmmaker. I mean, he really sings in this film. This feels like someone who loves movies in a way that I think very few directors can do, but is also so clever. I just wanted to smile from ear to ear at how well he was doing everything and getting everything like that, just how he used that style and what he was saying with certain frames. And he's so precise in his framing with Bill Pope. Bill Pope is just amazing, and the fact that like the only guy who can do Spider-Man 2, Team America, work work with Edgar Wright, work with Sam Raimi. I mean, he's just like, he has an amazing resume. I love Bill Pope's shot Clueless, by the way, one of my favorite DPs, and I just love what he does in this film. The way he shoots an Edgar Wright movie makes it sing in certain ways that I don't think another cinematographer could do quite as well. He like gets the comedy of it, he gets the fun of it, he gets the visceralness of it, he gets all of those references, and he puts so much detail and amazingness and preciseness into the frame. It's almost as precise as how like Wes Anderson shoots his films, and like these great auteurs who people write essays about their cinematography. No one's giving fucking Bill Pope the respect he really deserves, because this film was amazingly well shot. Action films are not this well shot, and this plays almost like a parody of an action film. It's so close to being an action film, which is interesting, obviously, because Edgar Wright has made so many parodies using the kind of Cornetto trilogy and things like that, and I find this so interesting how he directs it. I don't think this is a flawless film. The end thing with Baby, I just don't think necessarily theoretically works with what he's doing with the whole movie. I had such an amazingly fun time with this. I haven't loved certain parts of a movie like I have with this all summer, really. And people have compared this to Get Out in certain ways. It's made in a very self-aware way. It understands its genre. It understands how it's playing with it. But I think the difference between this and Get Out maybe is that Get Out is really saying something and using it to say something with it. And I think Baby Driver is like a sugary soda soft drink. But that's what I enjoy in the summer. I like my cool AC, I like to get my cherry Coke, and I like to sit there and sit back and have a great time at the movies. And Baby Driver absolutely does that. And it's like a summer movie made by someone who loves the movies and wants you to have a great time and have you tapping the feet and go, fuck, I really enjoyed that. And I think that's what Baby Driver is trying to do. It's kind of like watching a Tarantino kind of obsessive cinephile make their fun summer movie of their dreams, and I think Edgar Wright sort of did that. He made probably a better car movie. That's probably the only one who's making more fun car movies are the ridiculousness of Fast and Furious films. This film feels as impossible as it works in the studio system and got to be as good as it was, and then you got to make a film like this as it is that those Fast and Furious films have continued to exist and be huge blockbusters, and everyone's cool with the irony. I have a little more faith in society that this did well. We'll see if it continues to do well and such, but I absolutely love Baby Driver. I love what he did with it. I will probably see it a bunch more times and have a lot of fun with it. I sort of think eventually drinking this much soda of this movie, I will kind of get sick of it, and this might end up being a lesser favorite of his filmography, but maybe he will make worse movies, or maybe this will improve on various other viewings. But it is so much fun and so infectious. If you love the movies, Baby Driver will love you back, and you will be tapping your feet all throughout, just as I had Baby Sophie, dancing around on my seat and having a great time. Just the experience of this movie was so much fun. I'm so glad I got around to see it. It almost felt unreal that a great director got to make a car movie and kind of take the bare bones deconstruction that The Driver was and play off of it in such an amazing kind of interesting way that still works in the millennial way, the kind of loner with his iPod headphones and everything like that. It just felt so smart and perfect in certain ways that I don't think a lot of directors could match the perfection in certain scenes that Baby Driver really did. And I just really had a lot of fun with this movie, and I don't think the fun and enjoyment of this film is the kind of thing that we dream that summer movies can do, but are often left with the sludge on the floor of the multiplex rather than the sugar high that you run and tell people, oh man, you really gotta see this one. And I think Baby Driver exudes that so well that you kind of can't deny it and can't not have fun with a movie like this. Even the people who aren't as in love with it will admit it's a damn good time. And although I don't think it's a perfect film, I will say it is a damn good time. And I think Edgar Wright exudes that kind of party atmosphere that a true cinephile who loves movies knows, that maybe the greatest party of the summer isn't outside or dealing with other people or putting on sunscreen. It's actually just sitting down in an empty, dark theater and enjoying the hell out of an amazing car chase of a movie. So if you have seen Baby Driver and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.